Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 3 of the of the Talking Nonsense About Impact Wrestling channels. The Impact Zone. Alongside me is the MJF to my Sasha Banks. It's Max. Everybody, what's going on, buddy?
I mean, my initials are MJS, so I'm close. I'm gonna go ahead and start spouting a promo here.
Yeah.
Where I call you a fucking mark.
I mean, aren't we
cut
all?
My mic.
Aren't we all? Including them. So we got a lot to talk about. If you're wondering why we're talking about other companies, this is our hotspot for all free agency rumors, depth charts, and Impact roster, as well as what the outside companies are doing with their roster that affects ours. Speak of the devil, we obviously have MJF to talk about. He's in our breaking news, so we could get right into that. But first, Max, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing well. Getting ready to watch Hell in a Cell tonight. I think it's Hell in a Cell. I don't know.
Miss it.
It's AJ, Finn, and Liv Morgan. I don't know where she fits into the former Bullet Club leaders, but two of the former Bullet Club leaders against...
Was AJ a leader? Might have.
Yeah, he was. 100% a leader.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
He was still the leader at that time.
No, Kenny was a nobody at that point. AJ took over right after Finn left. AJ came in, and then when AJ got beat out, that's when Kenny took over.
That makes sense. Google it.
Kenny was the clean. Yeah.
All right. Well, so yeah, we got that to talk about. In general, AJ. We'll see Slammiversary coming up. It's possible. I still think that there's a possibility we announce a new Impact Hall of Fame inductee for Bound for Glory, but let's get to what we were talking about with MJF. So we talked about Sasha and Naomi our first episode of this, and look, they argumented over creative. They walked out allegedly. They got removed from the roster page. They stopped following each other on Twitter. They got removed from the beginning of the intro. They stopped selling their merch. And a week later, the same thing happens with MJF. So we can both agree that at least now that thing is a work.
100%.
Okay.
Now. At least now.
So looking at it there, and we could debate when it started, as becoming a work or a shoot, depending on what you want to, what side of the spectrum you want to look at. Let's look at it from a free agent standpoint. Say this kid does go into free agency whenever his contract runs up, 2020, 23, 24, whenever it may be, or tomorrow. Is this kid upping his value, or is this something that is a red flag to stay away from?
I mean, I think he's upping his value because his ability to go in, like if obviously he's not going to Impact,
right?
Impact's not going to reform. He would go to WWE, and I'm pretty sure he would be one of those people that they would let come in and they would just give him a mic and they would say, "Go out there and shit on Tony Khan," and he would just walk out there, and at least for a little while, because they would just let him if it wasn't a work. Let's assume it's a shoot.
Oh, okay.
He's really serious. And he is like, fire me, and Tony Khan's like, you know what, fuck you, bro, you're done.
Okay.
Fire. Like, so when something like that, yeah, but I mean, overall, he's not going to be released now. So it's going to be in 2024 when his contract comes up, assuming he doesn't sign an extension. And in that case, AEW and WWE are both just going to throw tons of money at him, because I can only assume his star is going to grow brighter over the next 2 years. He's going to become a world champion. He's clearly someone they're going to build around. So I think he'll be a massive star. And I think since he only cares about money, or at least that's what it appears, I think WWE will throw money at him.
So it's possible. Here's the thing I always say is that number one should never talk about number two. I talk about that in podcasting. I talk about in TV. I talked about in sports. What's the point of acknowledging number two when you're number one? So for that reason, I don't think they'll do that if he was hired. One, I think it's a work, and I think he stays with AEW for a very long time, as long as it's up and running and whatever. My thing with this is he's already, from the get-go, been accused of stealing EC3's gimmick. He just took the pipe bomb from CM Punk. He took his face from the Muppets. When is this kid going to come up with something original to where is this something... And I like the guy. I think he's a very talented kid. I really do. But when do you become... Eli Drake male model manager, where's that different? Does he have the goods to back it up? I'm not a fan of AEW to the point where I could tell you every one of his matches.
I mean,
he needs that extra to.
The issue is, I do think he has star power. I think he's amazing. The problem is, in AEW, he doesn't wrestle particularly
often, right?
He plays his character perfectly. He's like the slimy, shitty heel, and in order to get to, it's like the boss of like those old like Streets of Rage or something. In order to get to me, you got to beat the 5 guys before me.
Sure.
He did it with Jericho. He did it with Wardlow.
Right.
The problem is WWE doesn't do that.
Yeah.
In WWE, he's gonna have to wrestle more, and so I think he's great. I'm sure he could pivot and do that stuff. But as that slimy, like, I'm the final boss type heel, I think he's great. And I honestly think AEW would use him more because of the lighter schedule. I think they'll use that style. Now, at some point, he's going to get a world title run, and hopefully when he does, unfortunately, with a lot of AEW's heel champions, they just have him, like, slime out victories over and over. I just want to see him beat people. But I mean, that's kind of the issue is you're going to have him wrestle.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't know. I don't know if a toned down MJF in WWE, I think he would be great, but it depends on what WWE does with him. Like, how much if this was the Attitude Era, he'd be awesome.
Right.
Now,
that's the key, yeah, because it's more than just talking. It's more than just story. It's the whole package, and I think he does have a lot of it. I just want to see if my thing is this: is when you same with the Good Brothers, and it's not about painting yourself into a corner, but when you work for WWE and you don't want to work there again, you worked for Tony and you don't want to work there with him at all or whatever. I don't even think they use the word Forbidden Door. The words, the Good Brothers. You kind of are locked in. You are with Impact or in New Japan. Yeah. Is this a place where it puts MJF into that corner? Now, someone who it doesn't, and that's my next question. W. Morrissey, obviously on the exit or the out of Impact, did his last job to Macklin in this tag team main event this previous Thursday. I think the world of him. We talked about we wouldn't need a Braun if we kept a Morrissey. After listening,
now we need a Braun.
After listening to his interview with Renee not too long ago, you could tell he's very grateful for the time he had in Impact, the time to rehab, the time to, in a multitude of ways, his reputation, himself, his body, get it right, get his character where he was, and then the AEW show, obviously maybe gave him a taste of what could be outside. He spoke one about doing movies. Do you see him getting that other chance or wanting to have that chance with WWE again, or do you think AEW is a place you being better with that for him to where he could come in and make a no pun intended impact?
Well, no, I don't think he would make any impact in AEW because, I mean, their roster is so bloated. Now, they have some injuries, apparently. Obviously, CM Punk's injured, apparently. Bryan Danielson's injured. Adam Cole's injured. Mega's. So they have some injuries.
Yeah.
But people come in there, they kind of get a hot start, and they just kind of fade away. I think he would end up, honestly, if he went to AEW, I saw somebody say it on Reddit, they'd probably team him up with MJF, and he would end up being that bodyguard of MJF that Wardlow was.
Right.
He would just step right in there. But I think he wants to go to WWE. I think that's where he belongs. Apparently WWE has taken notice of him. I think he is, like, when they split him and Enzo up, they split them up because Vince saw him as a star. Like, he's everything that Vince wants. He's massive size-wise, like physique-wise, he's in great shape. Obviously, recently we've seen him, he's gotten good on the mic. I'm pretty sure his release from WWE had to do with some of his internal issues and not because WWE was like, we don't see you as a star.
Oh, yeah.
So now, as long as he's got those internal issues behind him, has put those behind him, I think WWE is where he's going to go, and I think they would want him back. He's everything. They may start him in NXT for a bit, but
oh no,
I mean, like, possibly, but I don't. I think he's everything that they would want as a main eventer.
I agree with you. I think it was a matter of, hey, when the time's right, we'll throw money at him to get him back. And I think this is the right time for him. Look, there's people like this, and this is where Impact, and we'll get into that, free agency comes into play. There's up-and-comers or reclamation projects is where Impact kind of strives. Or the experienced, already well-off veteran who wants to come in and contribute or create something new, right? A fresh coat of paint. So with him, I think this is, people are like, oh, Impact. It's two-sided, first of all. It's his choice of, does he want to stay, does he want to go? Doesn't matter what Impact offers him. If his offer is elsewhere and his eyes are elsewhere, then it is what it is. I'm sure he's thankful. The fan base, to me, and I talked about some of the flagship just not a bit ago. You can't be bitter at someone who came in here under the circumstances they did. We gave him a chance. We let him rebuild himself. He spent a year and some change here, and now he's ready to go back into something again, to where he was on the cusp of greatness in WWE. Cusp. He didn't get to taste the full roster all the time, that going out in front of tens of thousands of people, getting that applause, getting that run, and I think he deserves it, and people need to chill out with it. But more so, the point is how big of a loss is this for Impact, or is this something that you think they might have been preparing for prior?
I mean, I think it's a pretty big loss. He was definitely someone who was easily one of your main eventers, could go in, but I'm sure they've been prepared. They had to have known. Once you get a guy in a situation where he's on a per appearance basis, to where like contract is ended, and if you reach out to somebody and you're like, hey, we'd like to re-sign you, and their response is, hey, I'd prefer to go to a per appearance basis, you start planning that this person isn't going to be here very long.
Yeah.
I
think with it, though, with it, and I agree with you, I think with this, management communication is pretty damn good. Especially have all those PPAs, so you kind of have the writing in the wall. And the fact that he was in tag team matches for the past few months really speaks to where they knew where his head was at.
So yeah, they know, they keep up, they know. I mean, you've got an Impact. It's like old ECW. You're gonna have your Tommy Dreamers, who are
Eddie
for lifers.
Younger, Eddie Young, or Eddie.
Honestly,
Eddie Young. Excuse me.
I would honestly, I think it's Ace Austin. If you follow him on Twitter, when any time anybody says Ace Austin needs to go someplace bigger, he's not getting. Ace Austin's like, to like rando people with like 6 followers. Ace Austin's like, man, I've done like starts listing off all the stuff he's done in Impact.
Well,
so
I think he's a little different than the Tommy Dreamer or Sandman of ECW.
I mean, RVDs, like he's that. Like you get guys who are like, I like it here. I could go someplace else, but I want to stay here. Yeah. You get your older guys who come in, and then you get your guys who are there for a stop. Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with that. It actually keeps things fresh.
It does. And for something that I would consider us a small market team at the moment.
Yeah.
Bringing in some fresh characters for a year every 6 months while you keep your core growing and building within. Look at Macklin, just got the pin over Morrissey before he left. Macklin would not have got a pin on Morrissey on day one. So we're building these people to stay while bringing in people to leave. And that's something I want to talk about. Obviously we'll take a look at depth chart, but I moved Morrissey right to number 7 because I think he is a huge get. Obviously, Johnny Something went down. We'll call him Matt because he's losing on Dynamite and on Rampage and on wherever else. And then he's winning in GCW. So he's all over the place. But I think those losses, the same, not with Morrissey because that was a one-off thing, but it kind of hurt his value. But what I was getting at was the top 25 you could see there, guys. There's some people off the board. There's some people on. This is an update in the sense of where we wish we could once we have more time. I said it on the other show. Looking for help. If you want to join the team, I want to make an impact, hey, hit us up at TNAIW channel on Twitter, and we'll get something rolling. But, yeah, I think he is a big star, and I think he will go in that sense to somewhere like WWE. That it offers more than just money. It offers more than just fame. There's just so much that you could do in there with that company. But
I mean, Liv Morgan's about to be in a movie. I'm sure if he wants to be in movies, go to WWE, they'll put you in a movie.
Right. But so it does leave a gap in our depth chart here. And that's something we want to look at and talk about. But I want to do this first. Let's look at the recent departures. And this is something that we talked about that we wanted to bring up because, when you lose people, it's about regaining other aspects, right? If on certain circumstances, like a Macklin, is he ready probably for that DMC title? So can we fill him in there? Which he already is there on number 2. I don't know. We just kind of, they're not in order. But yes, you know, obviously people move up at the same time people leave. But Willie Mack, we talked about. Morrissey, we just did. Inspiration was a bit ago prior. And then Myers, we know, is a PPA.
Yeah, so I mean, he's not really a departure. Him and Cardona seem to be happy appearing in Impact for programs.
Yeah.
Like, it's not a one-off, but it's like, hey, we'll do a program here, and then we'll, you know, take some time off, and then so.
Yeah, and I think, and let me get your take on that really quick, because, you know, the other big news was Jay White's done with Impact, which, of course, that headline is going to get the clicks. But the truth is that they're only there when they're not needed in New Japan, right? If they're in the States. So obviously Forbidden Door's coming up. He's going for the championship. Who knows what they're going to do with Jay White in his home company. But the same with Jonah. Everyone's freaking out about Jonah. We said the same thing. We had him on here just in case, but he's someone who is contracted in New Japan. Yeah. So he said, I'll see you down the road. He just mentioned, hey, I'm not done. I'll still be back around. Like, chill out, people. But with people like that, and then, of course, our arrivals as well. I don't know if Jack Evans, we just got him announced on Thursday for Slammiversary, the Ultimate X, which is dope. You know, obviously Team Canada represent. But him, Mia Yim, and Taya, who look like locks to say. Briscoe's not sure, but could be here for a while. Tony seems non-committal, and I just don't think they fit the WWE market.
Definitely not the WWE market.
So I don't want to say it as simple as are we replacing people, you know, in a good way, but is the balance there? And then looking at what we're bringing in and looking at what we lost, quote unquote, does that change? We said no Braun because we had a Morrissey. Do we need that big guy, or does Moose fill that role? Where's your head at as far as what we need to fill now?
I mean, I wouldn't mind another giant big guy. Moose, to me, I mean, he's big, but he's too athletic to be a giant. Like Moose can do stuff that you're just like, nah, that's not. Yeah. No, so he's out of there. I do think they need a official like knockouts tag team. Even if you combine one, I think if you could bring in another one, it's some way, shape, or form, that would be nice. But just because
I agree with you, it's just that there aren't established. You know?
Oh, I know, but I'm saying like if you look out there and you find 2 people and you're like, hey, we'd like to bring you guys in and build you like something like that, to where you, even if they're not a tag team now, if you send them out and you're like, hey, we want to sign you and build. So I think something like that. But I mean, I know they need another contender for the World Heavyweight title. Yeah. Honestly, I think that contender is Ace Austin.
I do too.
I think it's time. He was added to Bullet Club. Like, he did great in Best of Super Juniors. So clearly he's someone.
He's obviously an advocate for Impact.
Yeah, like, so it gives people. Yeah, so he's an advocate for Impact. I know people were complaining, like, what does this do to Chris Bay? But luckily with Impact, because there's 3 it's not AEW where you have your heavyweight, your mid card, and then tag. Mm-hmm. Because they have the X Division and the DMC one.
Yeah.
If Ace Austin is the X Division champion, Chris Bay can just transition to the DMC title.
I agree with you.
If Ace Austin goes up for the World Heavyweight, then Chris Bay just fits into X Division. If Hikuleo comes back, I think him and Chris Bay are a great tag team.
I do.
I like the big man, little man tag team.
I do too.
I think that's, like, he fits in well there. So I don't actually think we need another main eventer. I just think officially moving Ace Austin into the main event role needs to be done, because if you do that, you have enough people in the X Division to keep the X Division.
Right, and it's easier to bring in X Division people than it is. So I agree with you, and what I talked about, not to be redundant to those who watch all of our shows, but I think that it's going to hurt some people's feelings to say we don't need another main eventer if we bring Ace up. I think Ace, especially with Destination X coming up, has that in to become a main eventer in that sense. I think he already is in terms, but not as far as in the eyes of the championship. The X Division title, though, that he's synonymous with now, and he's making, some relationships there. Would it be cool if he kept the belt and started defending against bigger names from New Japan? Had some of those, Taiji Ishimori kind of thing come back and have those cool things, Sonata, all these people that could do some stuff. So there's different ways you could play with it, but he definitely is someone that needs to get elevated. Obviously, they're elevating Macklin and PCO, but those names there, I think there's other ways you can do it instead of hot-shotting them. They've been building credibility. I think that Digital Media Championship, especially with Rich Swann holding it, who's a complete workhorse, former champion, these are the kind of cats, especially Bay. Myself, Lucha, and Io were talking about pretty hardcore about how Bay just, that DMC, if given the right storyline, it could really elevate him. I
agree.
But say we do want to get a free agent out there with all of the money. I mean, because here's one thing. Let's look at the departures again. Because you look at here, say Briscoe's our PPA, Taya, we don't know. Mia looks locked in for 6 months, it says. Jack might just be a one-off. And even we don't know their values. There's no depth chart, in real life, salary cap, all that stuff. But you look at these people here that we lost, quote unquote, that's some big money names. Are the books getting cleared to a point where we can finally swing and say, we need a main eventer? Cesaro, how much you want, bro?
I mean, that's a possibility.
Yeah.
I think that would be the person that I would. Cesaro, I like Bray Wyatt.
I do too.
But I feel like if you're doing Bray Wyatt correctly, he doesn't need a championship.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just like The Undertaker. Like, his creepy cult leader gimmick is better off with individual storylines, him going after specific people, than him going after titles. But like Cesaro or... I'm trying to look here. I mean, really, Killer Cross might be...
I love Killer Cross. I don't know the human being. He obviously did an intro for our show, so he's cool by us.
Yeah.
But the package of him and Scarlett...
if he comes back, we can start using the intro again.
Right. Twofer. Yeah, I think there are people out there that could fill in that role, but a Cesaro is somebody who comes in, the internet shuts up because they respect Cesaro. He's going to come in and be that workhorse versus Josh Alexander, Moose, Callahan that could just solidify that main event. Yeah. The thing with Bray Wyatt, though, for me is that, and obviously we talked about him as being our number one compared to number two. If you could go with Cesaro, go for it. But with Bray, he doesn't need a championship. But at this point, even though Josh is rocking it out, we're talking future here. We're not talking next champion tomorrow. We're talking when Josh loses it. Does the title need Bray Wyndham more than Wyndham needs the title? Yes. But what could he bring to that legacy of the title after Josh's monumental run? Would that be the stepping stone we need to keep going on and on and on?
So let me ask you this. Let's say Ace Austin holds the X Division title, goes to New Japan, and is defending this title against guys from New Japan.
He said he wanted to.
And then he decides to option C, cash it in, and then wins the heavyweight title. And then you have a guy that has been killing it in New Japan. And then you're like, well, now could that also elevate the title in a different way to where you've seen someone, the world has seen this guy go out there and just absolutely kill it? It's like, well, shit.
And this is kind of his crowning moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, look, for me, who is I say day oneer, as in I've seen the best of the best get built up and then either leave or seen the best get built up, stay, and then not get the run that they deserve. I think between Josh and then you follow that up with Ace, them are two homegrown talents that did it the right way through booking, not just them, but through, the booking, creative, treating them the right way, management treating them the right way, telling their story the right way. And then you have two solidified main eventers, who I've compared multiple times to being the Joe and the AJ of our group. I mean, that's a great point. The reason I'm so whatever on free agency, not just because the show is based around it, but also because, and that's part of it. We have to take a step back as fans and say what makes sense longer, bigger picture, longer down the road. Is it swinging and missing, or is it building within? My thing is, I think the fans are impatient to the point that they don't want to build within any longer. I think slow and steady wins the race.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be cool to have like Cesaro or Bray or someone come in and win the title. But the problem is, one, you don't know if they do have plans down the line.
Right.
If their decision is, hey, we want to give Ace Austin a world heavyweight title run, and you bring in a Cesaro, what does that do to? Well, you're going to say, okay, we'll put the belt on Cesaro, but it's going to be a short run because by this pay-per-view we plan to give Ace Austin his title. So, and that's my issue, is you don't want to bring in somebody, put the title on them right. Like, I don't know. That's always my concern, is sometimes when you add in free agents, especially those elite top level free agents, because there are such big free agents, the fans want to see them in title pictures.
Yeah.
And you have to figure out a way to basically jump them to the front of the line. And it kind of pushes people that have been working and you've been building down a peg or two, because so that's kind of
because you invested
my only concern.
That money and time into building somebody, and then
so I'd almost rather say, hey, let's grab somebody like Johnny Gargano, who comes in, maybe doesn't instantly jump into the world heavyweight title.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe he jumps into the
X or
DMC or the X division or something like that, and then and people are okay with that. Still a big name, so that's kind of where.
Yeah, I agree with you. The practical Jeff agrees with you. I want to keep being patient. I just know that talking on the main show that we get a lot of comments on when. So
the problem is, and I understand why, Impact fans want Impact to be what AEW and WWE are. The problem is, here's the thing: the MLS doesn't look at the Premier League and say, you know what, we're going to go toe to toe with them. They say, you know what, we know our place in the world. We'll develop our U.S. players, and some of them are going to be stars and they're going to leave. Maybe we get some people who just stick around and stay here forever. But
we're building a viable company.
Yeah, you slowly grow and get to the point where, it's a company that people enjoy watching, and don't always go for the big name splashes, because sometimes those don't work.
Yeah, unless they're Beckham. So,
yeah.
And that's the thing, is I think that's a perfect analogy as to what we are, is, I won't even say small market because that sounds derogatory, but MLS compared to a larger, a larger group. And that's not a knock. We're building, even though we've been building for 20 years, we've had some big lumps and some big falls and some big gains. It's just part of the game.
Just like the XFL, The Rock isn't going to go toe to toe. He's going to use the XFL to set up his presidency, and then
I'm telling you,
go from
there.
You're
with me, man. So speaking of that, and I want to say this because I've got a few mentions on this, and we talked about a little bit off air, but I don't see the Knockouts division specifically being a point of need. But once again, you bring in some Knockouts, you have extra per se that aren't in the main picture, you bring them to the tag division. Athena was on our board. She went, I believe she was number 9 or 10. Now she works for AEW. I don't want to say, is this a big miss, but where's your head at with that signing, and in regards to, compared to the other things we need, would that have really done anything in the long term?
I mean, I like her. I think she's good, but I think we had talked about the fact that like AEW was the better spot for her. So it's kind of, is it a loss? Sure, because she would have been a good get. She's a name.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things that you kind of are like, hey, we expected her to go here anyway. There's other people, Dakota Kai. I know we have Tess. I don't really want her. Who else do we have? It's hard for me to read.
As far as knockouts on there?
Knockouts,
I don't think
Candice LeRae's on there
as well, yeah.
I know
Nia
Tegan
Jax.
Knox, whatever. Nia Jax. Yeah, people like that I think are equally as good as, even though they may not be ready to hire, some are. Obviously, Dakota Kai is.
Different reasons.
I think in the grand scheme of things, I think any of those people would be equally as big of gets for Impact. So is it a loss? Yes, because she's obviously not available, but it's not something that I think Impact is like, crap, we really missed out on something there that we had really hoped we would get. So
I agree. Last thing before we call this one. We talked about Slammiversary before. We made our prediction. AJ, we said it again at the beginning. I don't know if you got a chance to watch the promo again. They keep adding to it. What's essentially in the TNA Pandora box? When that Pandora box opens at Slammiversary, now we have TNA Originals, the match that I said what I thought would happen. We got Motor City Machine Guns and Kazarian versus Honor No More, but they get 2 more people. I'm thinking America's Most Wanted. That's what I hope for.
I think America's Most Wanted would be fun. But you also have to wonder, is Christopher Daniels possibly going to show up? Is Samoa Joe possibly going to show up? Because with Kazarian there, clearly there's a good enough working relationship.
Good enough.
That they can. And by the way, it would not surprise me if Ace Austin shows up at Forbidden Door. In some way, shape, or form, whether it's a Bullet Club multi-man match.
That's fair.
Something.
That's fair.
It would not surprise me.
Let's hit.
By the way, if you see Fuego del Sol or Captain New Japan in any multi-man matches, understand those guys are taken. So if you need to go on to whatever betting site, if you see one of those 2 people, and I know Captain New Japan retired, but still, if you see those 2 jobbers in a match, know that they're eating a pin. But so it wouldn't surprise me if Ace Austin shows up at Forbidden Door and possibly. But I do think America's Most Wanted would be the best possible option. They would be
my only, and I don't even why this is a concern. This is a bad situation or a good situation to be in. But if AMW is the team coming in, if Daniels is a guy coming in, if Samoa Joe's a guy coming in, doesn't that kind of dwindle the possibility of the Hall of Fame induction being someone outside of that amazing core of 4?
I don't think so. Now, there is one more possibility.
Okay, lay it on me and we'll end it off.
If we think that it's going to be AJ, it means they talked to WWE.
Yes.
And if they talked to WWE, maybe it's beer money.
Glorious. Yeah. I was.
Look, can you imagine the crowd is silent? Like AMW, I like they're a big team, but can you imagine beer? Like the crowd would explode. Like that would be a huge...
In their defense, pun intended here, we find the defendants guilty. Chris Harris just appeared this week on Impact, so I think, I think that's hard. That's hard. That's something we'll leave for you guys. We'll end it off on that. Who would you prefer? I think it's a great bad situation to have AMW, beer money, or who for...
Imagine you've got Impact, AEW, and WWE guys rallying together to fight off the ROH.
ROH After Dark.
We're just burying your company at the end here.
Oh, man. Tony's got that one covered. So, all right, guys. Thank you for rocking with us. Max, pleasure as always, my friend. We have some fun stuff coming up for you guys from the both of us that you'll see hopefully sooner rather than later. Once again, if you want to join the team or help us out at TNAIW channel, write us. Let's get this thing going. Thanks, guys. Let's look forward to Slammiversary.
Later, guys.
Bye.